eventually I just snapped and I was like, all right, I'm gonna make this shop happen. And I told everybody in my life I'm gonna open a shop and I'm gonna be the biggest thing in the area if I can help it. And so far, I feel like we've really been nailing it. What I want to see is my team eat fat. I want to see them do well, because when they do well, then I'm doing well. And as long as we're all doing better and better, it only builds it up further and further. So it creates a strong foundation of everybody wants to see the person next to them do just as well as them. And a good example of that is that we try to specialize here. You know, I encourage people to stay within the lanes of the things they really enjoy doing. Like, for example, Josh really enjoys doing like illustrative style tattoos. And so anytime something gets remotely into that realm, I immediately toss clients his direction. I've tossed recently, I had somebody come in, and it was two people that were talking about getting tattooed by me. And instead of just me going, I'm going to take both these people, we set it up so he's taking one of the tattoos and I'm taking one of the tattoos on the same day. They can both come in, and that way he feels like I'm just as loyal to him as he is to me. And the biggest problem I see nowadays in tattoo shops is loyalty, man. Nobody wants to love the people they work with. Everybody wants to rip off somebody, screw them over, do whatever they can to get something up on them. And I didn't want that to be the case here. So I think the most important thing about that is that I have to be the dad in the situation, as it were. You know what I mean? I have to be the one that's like, you know, guides the culture, the directions it needs to go. But I also have to listen to these guys. And there's times that they've told me things about myself that I didn't want to hear, things that I didn't know how to process, didn't know how to move forward on. But because I care so much about them and their well-being, it makes me really be willing to take a look at themselves. And I think that probably the biggest complaint anybody has in any job, if I'm really truly honest, is feeling unappreciated. And feeling unappreciated makes for workers that don't do much anything. And when you feel taken advantage of, that's a formula for having people that'll do just enough to get by and then take advantage of you back. And I didn't want to be that guy. I don't want to be booked out 6 months and see my guys starving. That didn't seem very fun at all. You know, last Christmas, I gave both of them a bonus because I knew that they were super struggling, and it was going to help make sure that their bills got paid and their kids got Christmas presents and stuff like that. And that's something that I've never experienced in my life. And so I think that really the way we're different here is that I've experienced enough other shops to know what I think is shit and what I think is not shit. And I don't want to be the opposite end of the things that I hated at all the other shops I worked at. So there's that.
Justin and I actually did not like each other when we first met. We're pretty open about it. We respect each other a lot now, and we are friends now. But Justin was a great artist as soon as I met him. We clashed on a lot of business ethics, and our relationship was super strained until we started the murder. I came along for this ride because I saw business opportunity, and I've always been able to set my differences aside with people if it's business related. So I've always kind of had this idea that I don't want to go into business with my friends, but I do want to make friends with the people I'm in business with. And that's kind of how we developed really strong mutual respect first by opening the murder, and then over time we've become really close friends, and I wouldn't want to be at any other shop. It's a great environment now. Even though we didn't agree on how things were ran in other tattoo shops, we also didn't see eye to eye on how to make it different at first. But as Justin likes to put it, he's the mad scientist, I'm the rocket scientist. So I'm a much more systems oriented person, and he's a much more, let's just try all of this stuff to see what works. And together we tend to come up with some pretty cool ideas and ways of thinking and innovative solutions and systems to the problems that plague the tattoo industry. The biggest one is that most tattoo shops don't see their clients as people, and that's something that we really strive to accentuate. Like, that's something we want to focus on as much as possible with this business, is to see all of our clients as people and to bring them into the flock, as we call it, so that they feel like they're part of something special, because they are.
super intimidating to be new in this industry and working beside people that are like what I consider the best that I see around this area, period. Um, Justin's been tattooing for like 15 years. Josh has been tattooing for like what, 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Carl's has been in it, about a year. He just got out of his apprenticeship, and it's just like, at first I wouldn't even draw around them. I wouldn't even, like, nothing. And I think that's why I started with piercings, because I was like so intimidated to do anything artistic wise, because like I've always had that about me. Like I want to be like, I want the gold star at everything. I want to be the best. I'm a teacher's kid, and so I want to be like the best one. And this was something. I'm also super competitive, and so I was just like, I'm not even gonna try. Like if I can't, be the best, I'm not gonna try. And that was just all internal crap that I'd like fed myself, because they're so not that way here. They love to help, and so one day I just finally like broke out of that and started asking them for help, and so then I started doing more than just cosmetics, and like I love the direction that I'm going in now, towards like some ornamental black work and stuff, and I love that stuff, and they're all supportive of it. Like if I ever have a question, I'll stop in the middle of a tattoo before I'll continue on with somebody and think I may mess it up, and just say, hey, what should I do here? And the clients tend to respect that way more than if I just was to go ahead and go, and be too prideful to stop and ask for help. So, super intimidating at first. Now it's like amazing. I couldn't ask for anybody better to be in this industry, period. I love doing this because it not only helps me as far as like, I've been through a lot in my life, and I won't go into like all my gory details and all that, but I've been through like a lot. And, so mental health and all that's real important. I'm not ashamed to talk about that at all, and I've gone to like different therapists and things like that. And I'm actively involved in a 12-step support group and stuff like that. But there was just still always a part that nothing ever helped. And whenever I started getting my own body art, it's just like each piece I get, I heal a little more. And to be able to help other people do that same thing is kind of like, I've worked in rehabs, I've been peer support, I've been community support, and I've done stuff like that and helped people in that way, but I feel like it wasn't as meaningful to me as one-on-one as this is, because it's me and the client. And, when you're tattooing somebody, or even piercing for that matter, they're in your chair for a period of time where you're really up close and personal, and these people talk to you and tell you things, and in turn I get to talk to them and share things with them, and I don't know, it's just the bonding that comes from it. The social aspect is absolutely my favorite thing of it. We're absolutely a family. Absolutely. And it's been the best friends that I've ever known. We've been through a lot here together as a team, even, and there's never been a point where I felt like uncomfortable or judged or afraid to speak up or anything like that. Like, it's just like, it's a loving environment. Everyone encourages each other. Everyone gives and receives constructive criticism. Like, we all just want to help each other grow, and that's been progressively happening. And it's amazing to see. I mean, we hang out outside of the shop. It's not just here, we're like together, and that's what a murder is, is a flock of crows. That's what the murder stands for, and that's how tight we really are.
A lot of it's just working, just proving your worth to the people around you, and just continuously getting better and better at art, and better at personal relations, and managing everything, making sure everything's right in the shop. There was a solid, I'd say 6 or 7 months where I would be in here until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, still just like making sure that everything is like perfect for everybody coming in. And it is like, a lot of people hear that and they're probably like, oh, that sounds like awful. I was like, no, it's worth it. It's all worth it. It all started from me tagging shit. Like, I just started doing graffiti whenever I was in high school. again, being angsty and fucking stupid. You know, let's do some stuff that'll get us arrested, but not too bad because I really don't want to go to jail. Started out with that, and then I got back into paper drawing. I was never any fucking good at it. Like, everybody told me I was good at it. They were fucking lying. But I just remember thinking that, like, if I can produce something like this on a wall, what's to stop me from doing it on a person? Like, if I really put my mind to it and grow my artistic ability enough, I can do whatever the fuck I want. And I feel like, honestly, that's the biggest thing. Is just being obsessed with it and just fucking loving the fact that I have I'm in a position, I have the ability to produce art and not have to live in that starving artist mentality that a lot of people do. But whenever I started here, it was a lot of responsibility at first, and it was a lot for me to get used to, but I think ultimately I've handled it really well, and I've come into my own a lot. I've definitely matured a whole lot since I've been here. It's just been a super eye-opening, awakening experience for me to be here. It really, like, I finally feel like I'm in a place outside of the home where I'm loved and respected a lot, because, like, throughout high school and stuff like that, like, I wouldn't say that I was, like, bullied or nothing like that, but I just felt super out of place. And it was the same way whenever I went to college and I dropped out at orientation. I was like, I gotta feel for everything. I was like, man, fuck this shit, this ain't for me, I'm outie. And I was like, you know what'll help me, like, stand out or whatever, being, again, just an angsty, edgy teen lord, just get tattoos. So I started just getting tattooed when I could. I had a little bit of money saved up. I had quit Penn Station the first time before this. And so, like, I had like $900 or so, and I ended up dropping $3 to get a portrait from Justin. And that's where I met him, and we became close through the Ted Bundy that I have on my leg. I actually went into Homesick, which is where these guys used to work at before everybody moved out here. I went into Homesick, and the first person I talked to was Josh, actually. And I explained to him my idea and stuff, and then he turns around and he goes, Justin, I think this one's for you, bro. And then I saw Justin, I was like, whoa, all right, I can dig it, fuck it, you know? Like, dude's got face tats, this is cool. It was super chill. We just ended up talking about, like, old punk rock and fucking bands and stuff that we used to listen to, and we just vibed from moment one, you know? I don't think I've got to the point to where I want to be yet. I mean, I think as far as being satisfied with your work is, like, if you're reaching a point to where you're satisfied, you're not going hard enough. Like, whenever you crank out a piece of artwork that you're really proud of and stuff like that, you should also be super critical of it. Like, how can I make this better, and then bring it into the next piece that I make. Something just clicked one day, and I was like, if I don't get my shit together, I'm going to lose this opportunity. So I just fucking plowed through it. I started reaching out and asking for advice and help, and just doing everything in my power I could to just keep fucking growing. Because, I mean, honestly, to stagnate with art, with fucking business, with anything, is to just fucking die. And I don't really want to roll over anytime soon. Whenever I started this apprenticeship, I didn't know how to fucking draw. I knew how to write my name in fucking cool ways on a wall. Like, I knew how to fucking do, like, little stick figures that look funny. But now, if you ask me to recreate an image of some sort, I could easily sit down, just take my time with it, and eventually I'll get it.
One of the most powerful things about tattoos for me is that every time I get one, like, I didn't think of it like this. When I first started getting tattoos, I was like, I want to have sleeves, man. That's going to look so cool. And all my friends were like, man, you want tattoo sleeves? Are you kidding me? How are you going to get a job? And I was like, well, you know, I won't ever take them past the wrists. That way, you know, I can get a job if I wanted to. And then eventually I was like, well, you know, maybe I'll do my hand. And then eventually I was like, maybe I'll do my neck. And then eventually I ended up face tats McGee with it. But I think one of the most important things is that I just feel more complete with them. When I'm walking around looking like this, you know, I'm not gonna lie, people look at me like I'm crazy as fuck. Like, people, you walk through Walmart and I don't even notice it anymore, but my friends and loved ones would be like, people stare at you so openly, it's ridiculous. Like, but I don't see it, because when I look at them, they're just like, oh yeah, what time is it? You know, so I guess, like, every time I get another session, I just feel a little bit more complete. I mean, my legs are just tattoos stacked on top of tattoos. You can't even tell what some of them are anymore. I just like the way it feels to be heavily tattooed. I like the attention it brings, if I'm honest. You know, that's part of it, of course. A lot of them I got just because one of my friends was like, hey, man, here's a whim. Like, I just want to tattoo this on somebody. And I was like, that's a fucking cool picture, man. All right, cool. And So it was like, it meant something to me because it let one of my friends tattoo something that they really wanted to have in their body of work. And that was almost more powerful for me than me getting a piece of art that meant something really big to me, because then I was like actively helping somebody. I got to wear a really cool piece that they were passionate about. It would be really unique. And, I've recently learned that too. And, I really want to finish getting tattooed by the rest of the people in the shop for that exact reason, because I feel like when I do that, not only am I allowing them to put something that does mean something to me, because I don't just get anything tattooed on me anymore. I used to, but it also lets me make a connection with somebody, when they look up to me and they, see me as like a figure that is really powerful for changing the things that have come into their lives. It lets me have a connection with them, showing my trust and my love for what they're doing in a really, really powerful way. So there's some tattoos I have that really don't have a lot of meaning like that, but it was just such an amazing experience to be tattooed by somebody who I respected so much, and they respected me so much, that it was like, oh my God, this is a wholly different experience. I mean, like when Curls tattooed me, when Cassie just tattooed me today for that, and I'm gonna love that tattoo till I die. It's probably one of the most simple tattoos I have, but the connection that I made with that person, helping them, having taught them, brought them up, and then having them be able to feel like, oh, this guy really trusts me and he cares enough about me that he wants to have me be part of that process on his body, when I've tattooed everybody else in his shop extensively, is a really powerful experience in and of itself. And that was something I just ended up thinking a lot more about today, in light of that. But that's also, without realizing, it's something I've done a lot of times in my life before. Outside of that, I have a lot of book tattoos. I read a lot. I love books. My neck pieces on both sides are from a book called Ishmael and My Ishmael. It's about some gorillas. I mean, I'll let you guys look it up. I'm not going to sell you on the book, but it's amazing enough that I put it on my throat, on my neck. My throat's the quote from it's the Bene Gesserit Litany Against Fear, from the book Dune, and that was so that every time I looked at myself in the mirror, I had to remind myself, it says fear big as fuck right here, and that would look scary for a lot of people. I mean, why does that guy have fear tattooed on his neck? But what they don't see is the rest of it says is the mind killer underneath it, and it's a reminder that when I look in the mirror, that, like, bro, it's only you. The only thing that exists is in your own world. I mean, like, all these people around me exist, but we're all wandering around in our own little private vacuums of existence. And it reminds me that all of the things I'm afraid of, and it doesn't always work, but it helps. It's a really good, powerful thing to have there as a reminder that when I am afraid of things, that it's a good way to destroy your life, and it's a good way to destroy the things you love around you. And that having such a powerful reminder of that right dead smack in the middle of my throat, that it's unable to ever be covered, was like huge for me. Believe it or not, I mean, these don't have necessarily a lot of meaning to it. There is just some sacred geometry, but the meaning to this was I don't ever want to have a regular job again. I was struggling real hard with tattooing at the time. I was in another one of those real cutthroat shops, and I was like, well, I was working at, where was it? Wing Nuts, on like part-time, cooking chicken wings for people, and I'm like supposed to be some professional tattooer. And I was like, man, this sucks. I'm working 70 hours a week. I'm barely putting it by. And I decided I'm going to fuck my face up, so nobody will ever hire me again. And I'll have to either get good at tattooing, or I can go mop floors in Walmart late at night, and those are my only options. And so those mean a lot to me, because it's the commitment I made in my life to just stop pretending like it was okay to put a half-ass effort into something. I've got one on my leg that says no half steps, and it's the same concept, like there's no reason to ever take a half step in life. It says art's dead on my knuckles, and it says life poet down there. I got a broken wing right now, but if I'm honest, every one of them has a meaning. A lot of them have meanings that I didn't have when I got them. I was like, that's just a cool picture, and now it's like a reminder. Like, I've got one on my forearm here. It's of a famous internet cat called Chase No Face, and that was one of those ones where just a homie wanted to tattoo this cat on somebody. That cat is hideous. I mean, it looks like somebody put a firecracker in its face, and it's exactly what the cat looks like, and the tattoo looks just like that. A lot of people ask me, why would you ever do that? I don't know. It was cool at the time. I really enjoyed the conversation I had with that person, and I learned a lot from them while they were tattooing me. But now when I look at it, it's like a reminder to me that it don't matter how bad your life is, it doesn't matter how screwed up things are, how ugly anybody thinks you are and stuff like that, it's your life to live and you got to keep attacking it with the ferocity that you have. I think probably one of the most meaningful ones I have, which is going to sound really weird, is I have the word misanthrope tattooed on my forehead. And the definition of misanthrope is somebody that hates people. And I don't know if you've noticed this throughout these interviews. I'm not a hater. I'm absolutely a lover at heart. I'm just a scary looking lover when it comes down to, and when I got it, I was struggling with drugs. I was hating on myself really a lot, and I hated everybody else around me. I mean, it just it tears me up thinking about how dark the place I was in when I did that. And now it's a reminder of, when I look at it, as like, Justin, don't be this person anymore. Don't let this stuff rule your life the way it used to. And I mean, that in and of itself is really powerful for me, because it's the same reason I have my throat tattoo. I'd say the tattoos that have meant the most for me over the years have been some of the mistakes that I put on my body, some of the things that I thought that were going to be so cool to get, and now I'm like, well, that reminds me not to be that person anymore. It reminds me not to care about what other people think, and to just be me throughout all of it. But yeah, I mean, that's gist of it. They're all got some meaning in way, shape, or form,
Well, I've always been an artist since I was a tiny little kid. My mom really fostered a love of art and all things curiosity. So she loved fostering creativity and curiosity in me when I was a little kid. That thread continued through my childhood with my grandparents. So I've always been an artist. When it comes to tattooing, I first got interested in the field whenever I was 16. That's when I got my first tattoo. When I turned 18, I looked for my first apprenticeship, which I got at Tattoos Unlimited, also here in Moorhead. But I didn't continue my apprenticeship very long there. It wasn't exactly an upstanding establishment. So once I moved out of Kentucky, I gave up the idea of tattooing for quite a while. I got my college education. I was pursuing a degree in graphic design because I thought that it was a very artistic career. But it turns out that design and art, while similar disciplines, they're just not quite the same thing. I always wanted to be an artist, like specifically like a studio artist. I actually got my minor in studio art. I always kept that love of studio art while I was pursuing graphic design, but making logos and book covers and websites, I'm not really able to be quite as artistic with that, because it has to follow certain guidelines. It has to be visually appealing to the masses. On the other hand, with tattooing, whenever I'm creating art for one specific person, I really get to have a bigger impact with that one striking image that ends up going onto somebody's skin. So all of my tattoos actually mean something to me. I have memorial pieces on my shoulders. They were done a very long time ago. I'm kind of embarrassed to show them, so I'm not going to. But I've got a memorial piece for my dad here. This create yourself is my personal motto. It's what I try to live by. My wife and I actually have matching tattoos. Mine is on my forearm, left forearm. Hers is on her right upper arm. So when we're together, it's one big tattoo, but that has extra special meaning to us because of how it's laid out. It's a lot to get into. I have tattoos for my son. The tattoo on my neck was my commitment to my career. So every single piece that I have on me is something very special to me. I don't want to be making pictures with letters and worried about the kerning and whether this color combination is going to like evoke some sort of appetite for a food, or it's like corporate identity. Is this color something that evokes a feeling of trust? That just isn't what I wanted to do with my life. The way I tattoo is really reminiscent of how I create some of my art. So I'm a classically trained charcoal artist first, and I've really been experimenting a lot lately with how to make tattoos look like they're charcoal drawings on the skin. And there are plenty of techniques to pull it off. It's a whole lot of fun to do. But other than just the technical aspect of it, I love working with people to help them share their ideas. My big motto in life is to create yourself. It's a quote that's been ripped off and kind of distorted through the internet, but I can't remember the original author now, but the line of the quote goes along somewhere along the lines of life isn't about finding your passion, it's about creating yourself or creating your purpose in life. So create yourself has been something that I try to live by as often as possible, and I like to think that I'm able to help people do that with tattoos as well. So they get to decorate themselves with their stories in a way that helps them share.
A huge turning point for me as I came up, and one of the biggest influences on me to be more professional and to change how I looked at things was my employee Josh. And I hesitate to call him an employee because he's been a staple in my life, and he's a rock for me to go to when I'm having a hard time about something, or I really need some advice from somebody that's a real even kiltered kind of a guy. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if you can tell this again, looking at me and something. You know, I make really rash decisions really quickly. I'm real compulsive, and he's a great person to keep me from being compulsive like that. When we first met, I'll be honest, I hated his guts. He just didn't look like a tattooer to me. He didn't act like a tattooer to me. I had this image in my head of what a tattoo artist should be and how they should act and what they did and what they didn't do and how they tattooed and all these other things. And I'm sure his side of it felt really attacked, and I was always, just like, man, that motherfucker. And that was that old mentality that, oh, well, this guy isn't tattoo artist enough to be doing this and making the money that I should be making, or doing the things that I would want to be doing. And he stuck with it. He was so even kiltered. He didn't let my treatment change the person that he was. He didn't let me run him out and somehow be the gatekeeper to tattooing or something like that. And one day I looked around and I was like, this guy's probably the best person in the shop I'm working at right now. Not necessarily the best artist or the best businessman or the best human being, but he was just the most even and committed person to who he was, and he was the most himself. And one day I broke down and I just pulled him aside after having had the last 6 months of just shitting on him all the time, and I was like, bro, this is going to be real hard for me to tell you this. And I broke down. I straight cried when I told him. I was like, I'm real sorry I did all this to you, man. I'm super sorry that I treated you the way I did. You not once did anything to warrant me being such a dick to you. I just came in out of nowhere. I'm another mouth to feed in the shop you're working at. I'm taking money out of your pocket, technically. And I'm treating you like an asshole. And you didn't deserve that. I told the same thing to his wife. I was like, one day, when I was getting this place started up, and this was well after we'd had a reckoning and we were, friends again, or, for the first time. And I told his wife, I was like, look, I made some judgments about you even that weren't my place to make. And I passed those judgments, and I treated you poorly, and I treated him poorly, and I made these stories up in my head to be able to justify my own jerk behavior. And I think she was just as blown aback by it as he was. But now what's happened is that I actually have somebody who was committed to being himself and committed to being a tattoo artist so thoroughly. He was willing to follow somebody he knew was an asshole because he knew that this person still had a vision that was powerful. And throughout all of this, I can honestly say that he's become one of my best friends in the whole world. and that is incredibly powerful too. You know, Curls he's done some things for me in my life too, because he's come out of here, and you know, I didn't recognize it at the time, but I freely gave everything I could offer to him, all the different kinds of art knowledge I had and business knowledge and stuff. And sometimes I've even had to, you know, because he's a young guy, I've even had to be like, no, no, stop that shit right now. Don't ever do that one again, or don't ever do this thing again, or you're messing up your, you know, your life, or you're not paying attention to the effects that you're having on people around you. And he is 1,000% taken that advice, and it's reminded me that no matter how old I am or how jaded I've become, that it's a really important thing to be paying attention to the other people around me and learning from them all the time. And he is a sponge for that, and it's always an inspiration. And he's also become one of my best friends. You know, and Cassie, when I first met her, she was just a client for me. You know, I mean, just a client. Like, that was really when I was starting to try to change and pay attention to what people wanted to get and why they wanted to get it. And you know, she just wanted like a, you know, like a 90s and early 2000s kind of music sleeve. And you know, I had listened to a lot of that music growing up. I even recall she told the story one time about me kind of making fun of her a little bit when I was like tattooing some of the, you know, the bands that I wasn't such a big fan of on her, you know, like you know, Alice in Chains and stuff like that. I remember going, and I mean, looking back at it, I see what an asshole thing that was for me to do. But on the flip side, she knew how serious I took her art, and how serious I took the fact that I was marking her for life on a real serious level, and the ways that meant to her, because she'd had a real bad experience at another shop where she just felt like it was like a wham bam, thank you man, give me money, get out. And as I tattooed her more, we became, you know, closer and closer, in that we talked a lot, and we just vibed a lot as human beings. And that was something I never used to do. I never used to talk to people while I tattooed them. And eventually it ended up that right before we wrapped the sleeve up, she contacted me, you know, and she told me a story about why she was getting it. And it was actually a survey that I sent out. I remember I sent it out to a whole bunch of different clients, and I asked her why, because she was one of my best clients. I asked her, why were you getting this? What's the meaning behind this tattoo? And she wrote out like 4 paragraphs. You know, it probably was more like, you know, a small novel, explaining the situation she'd been in her life, and how hard they'd affected her, and how much they'd shaped her. And you know, I'm not going to get into the details because it's not my place to tell other people's stories, but it was powerful. It was so powerful that I cried reading it. And I immediately stopped what I was doing, and I went and messaged her, and I said, oh my God, nobody has ever told me something like that before. Nobody's ever been that forward and been willing to talk to me about those kinds of things in their life. And she asked me if there was something we could add to that tattoo that that really tied into that story. And I remember I went in that day, and normally I would have been real annoyed if somebody was like, hey, can we toss in some extra stuff? I know you've prepped for this and everything like that, but let's toss in some extra stuff. But I made it a point to think the whole rest of that night before I walked in the next day, and I was like, I'm going to tattoo this in a way that makes her feel and makes me feel like the story that she's told me is doing her justice. And the thing about it was I didn't see myself as being that kind of person. And the crazy thing is that my experiences with her tattooing her changed me on an intrinsic level as a human being. And eventually it ended up that I wanted to open my doors to her in my life and have her be a part of my life. And we started becoming interested romantically. And then I did something that would normally be a cardinal sin for, in my opinion, for most tattoo shops. And that would be to start including your significant other in the shop. But the way I took care of her as a client and how seriously I took that story made her a fan of me as a human being for life, not just my business, not just everything else like that. And I think that is absolutely the most important part to always remember when it comes to any type of business, and especially something as personal as tattooing, is that we're in the business of helping people. We're not in the business of drawing on people. What we're helping them with is feeling comfortable in their own skin. We're helping them feel comfortable with the stories and the things they've gone through. People forget that everyone else is a person, and that it's more important to make a human connection matter than it is to just make some money and go tell your friends how cool your tattoos are. So that's that.